page 8 of the agenda, item 10.1, which is the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee Terms of Reference and Action Plan. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone please put that forward as a motion? Thank you. Councillor Abdullah.
Yeah, I would like to move the recommendation on page 8 as a motion, and I'll read the 3 points in that recommendation. Point number 1 is adopt the amended terms of reference for the Greater Shepparton LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee as attached. Number 2, appoint Councillor Fern Summer as Councillor Representative and Chair to the LGBTIQA+ Committee. And number 3, that note the Greater Shepparton LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee Action Plan 2022 to 2025 as attached.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I get someone to second that, Councillor Summer, do you accept that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have someone second that motion?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly, first of all, it's really great to see that our council and the community, we have all come this far, and for that I would like to say a big thanks to the community members, to many community organizations for their advocacy, and of course Councillor Summer for your passionate advocacy on this subject. So I'll congratulate Councillor Summer on taking up the chair's role. The terms of reference, they have been revised. The committee was working with an interim terms of reference document, and it has been now updated, and it looks good. I also note that the councillor representative, we have one councillor representative on this committee, and that councillor representative is Councillor Fern Summer, but the representative do not have a voting right, so that's fine. We are updating our other advisory committees and their terms of reference as well, as I understand. The second point is that the action plan. So the development of the action plan is definitely in line with the principles of inclusion and also the things that we have said in our council plan, that to leave no one behind. So that policy is definitely reflected in the plan, because the goals of the plan are basically to advocate, celebrate, and inclusion and connection of the LGBTIQA+ community. I will be very interested to hear the committee's thoughts on how to progress some of the very sensitive issues that this community is facing. But I also want to ensure that the LGBTIQA+ community's safety, health, and well-being is also our priority. So together as a society, we know that we have yet to address many of the sensitive and difficult issues when it comes to the health and well-being of LGBTIQ community, but we can no longer pretend that those issues do not exist. So let's discuss them in a very respectful manner. And it will affect different parts of our council's services and infrastructure as well. So I think it's very important that the committee's advice and recommendations are considered when we are making policy decisions or embarking on projects. So I also note that the plan that is there is a bit broad. It hasn't specified specific tasks that will be undertaken under this plan, but I'm sure that Councillor Summer will take care of that along with her fellow committee members, and I wish all the best to the committee. Thank you.
Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to fully support what Councillor Abdullah said. I don't think I can add to that, apart from just congratulating Councillor Summer, because this was her hard work really resulted in this outcome, which I think is fantastic for that community and for all the community. In fact, it's finally formalised their voice. Up until this point, there's been individual groups having their say or trying to get their voice heard. The committee is their voice. It definitely will be heard, and I'm sure Councillor Summer will be a great exponent of that. It's in its infancy, so it's obviously going to evolve, as Councillor Abdullah said. No doubt, as it progresses, there'll be different factors coming to the fore, and they'll be dealt with. So what we see this committee as today, I'm sure in 12 months' time or 2 years' time will probably be slightly different. but no doubt you'll be just progressing forward, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Sally. This is such a big moment for the rainbow community out there. It's extremely exciting. It did come from councillor notice of motion, and now we have a tangible outcome of an inaugural committee that's going to create some amazing outcomes moving forward. We've begun with the basic action plan that will be a working document as stated. As time goes on, it will build the political capacity of committee members. They can voice their concerns, whereas previously they may not have felt empowered to voice concerns. And it will also help improve cultural sensitivities within the organisation. Things change so quickly in the LGBTIQA+ space that it's hard to stay on top of things and not step over that line into being insensitive, whereas with the committee helping guide us, we won't be making those mistakes. So I am very cognizant that the chair does not have voting rights. It will be the chair's job to remain impartial and respect the outcomes determined by the committee. I haven't had a lot of committee involvement this term as I had in the past due to a hectic work schedule, but it is quality, not quantity, and I will take this role very seriously if I do get the support. I'm extremely pleased there was interest from quite a few councillors for the chair role, and that demonstrates such strong support for this community. I know that Councillor Sam Spinks would have liked to have been here in person to share in this pride, and there might be room for 2 councillors in the future if we do amend the terms of reference. So I do feel an obligation to continue involvement in this committee since I did have a great deal to do with setting it up. But my focus will just be to ensure that the members are given a safe space for mutually respectful discussions and that it sets the tone for future terms. So we want people to feel empowered, to feel respected, to feel like their voice is being heard, and hopefully that tone will encourage more involvement in the future. So we know that this is an extremely vulnerable group and that the actions from this committee will be integral to ensuring inclusivity, public health outcomes across the municipality. So I won't talk too much more on it, but I do want to heartily thank all councillors for their support in this process. I'll congratulate the members who are going to be appointed, and I look forward to working for better health outcomes in the future. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, before we go to the vote, obviously, Councillor Summer, congratulations. I think you'll do a great job, and good on you for putting your hand up to lead this more recently included committee. So good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Sally.
We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 12 of the agenda, item 11.1, civic recognition policy. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to move a motion that the council adopt the civic recognition policy 37.POL5 as attached. And there are 2 more points I would like to add to the recommendation that is here. So point number 1 is that a milestone achievement, so the point is to add community organizations on page 3 of the policy, to say a milestone achievement may be awarded to individuals, businesses, or community organizations. And point number 2 is the policy be reviewed in 2 years and brought to the council meeting by August 2024.
Okay, before we go any further, councillors, do we need Councillor Abdullah to repeat that?
Would be good, please.
Can you please repeat that?
All right, so just hang on, I'll just go back to mine. So the motion is that the council adopt the civic recognition policy 37.PO5 as attached with the following additions. Number 1, to add community organization on page 3 of the policy. To say that a milestone achievement may be awarded to individuals, businesses, or community organizations. Community organizations was missing. And point number 2 is about the review of the policy, that the policy be reviewed in 2 years and brought to the to the scheduled council meeting by August 2024. The current policy document says a review after every 4 years.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillors, we comfortable with that? Everyone's aware of what that new motion is? No problem. Will someone second that motion? Okay. Councillor Brophy. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I will, thank you. So as we know that the purpose of this policy is to enable the Greater Shepparton City Council to recognize and provide official recognition to individuals or groups for their outstanding achievements or services to the community. And the policy has been reviewed, and the change has been, mainly the change is about the introduction of the application process for considering memorial plaques. That's included in the policy. There are two types of recognitions, official recognitions that the council undertakes. One is the Milestone Achievement Award, which is awarded to individuals and organizations once they have reached a significant milestone, such as a milestone if an individual has reached 100 years of age, or any couple who has been married or in partnership for 50 years. So there's a whole list of criteria that's included in the policy. And the second type of this recognition is through memorial plaques. And memorial plaques basically, and there's a criteria for this civic recognition. So so basically the policy has included some details around the process of applying for those memorial plaques. The reason that I've included a 2-year review is that I believe that in its current form, a policy is slightly vague because it does not specify the kind of objects that can be used to place the memorial plaques, whether a plaque is on a tree or on a bench, which a community member can also offer to donate to council and to have the plaque there. I also want to note that the memorial plaque is in memory of a person who has deceased, and there is a whole list of, again, there's a whole list of criteria that the deceased person must satisfy in order to have that memorial plaque. So overall, I'm comfortable with the policy. However, I want to see that in these 2 years, what kind of applications for memorial plaques we will be receiving from the community, and if there is any, if there's something that we want to add to the policy towards the end of 2 years, because I feel 4 years is a very long period. So that's why the motion says 2-year update. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sali. In response to Councillor Abdullah, who has changed somewhat of the recommendation that's been put forward with those additional points, I had to grapple with the memorial aspect of things, and in terms of being a group or a community organisation has been put forward, because under the definition of memorial, it's a statue or a structural established or a structure established to remind people of a person or an event. But it can well be a community organisation who may well be defunct now, and therefore a memorial, it might be, they say, the Shepparton Apex Club, who are no longer about. So I wholeheartedly support that aspect of it. The other aspect, of course, is regarding the 2-year review, and this is sensible in this policy, as there's been some discussion around the aspects of the policy, and I think a 2-year review will define the merits of what has been put forward. It will iron out, tweak, or it will consolidate what this policy sets out to achieve. It will remove, remove in 2 years any ambiguity around the memorials, plaques and awards, and I think the 2 years is quite appropriate for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I just wanted to commend, commend the council for the recognition of First Nations history throughout our community. We have a number of murals around the walls of prominent locations throughout Shepparton. And I just wanted to commend the council for their efforts so far, and that's an ongoing process in regards to recognition of that. Very symbolic, in the front of our council building we have Private Cooper, and then we have William Cooper in the parks and the gardens. It's very comforting as First Nations persons to see that within our council. I think it's very respectful that we continue that history and advancing the reconciliation process throughout our community. So again, Mayor Sully, I just wanted to commend the council for their contribution towards that.
No worries, thank you, Councillor James. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 15 of the agenda, item 11.2, exercise of delegations policy. There is a recommendation. Please have a councillor put that forward as a motion. Councillor Dodson.
Thank you, Mayor Staley. I'll move that the council adopt the exercise of delegations policy 37.POL2 as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I please have a councillor second that?
I second that, Mayor Sully.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, the procurement policy was passed in December 2021, and this policy is now being, the exercise of delegations policy has been reviewed in the light of that adoption. There are 4 key recommended changes: a new policy format, references and terminology in reference to the Local Government Act 1989 have been updated to reflect the 2020 Local Government Act, removal of the table of financial delegations in section 5 and 7 as instruments of delegations, because that now is in another policy, and the removal of the contracted variations attachment, and because that is also in the procurement policy which was adopted in 2021. The changes have been made, could be summarised as follows: the document updated in a new policy format. I think that's an important issue to reflect modern thinking. Changes arising from the implementation of the Local Government Act 2020, and we know that that new Act of 2020 has changed a lot within the local government sphere. The terminology updated from section 86 special committees. Now we now call them delegated committees and community asset committees, just to reflect the modern terminologies. Changes to committee structures and purposes, and of course we're always referencing the Local Government Act 2020. Internal audit recommendation was that additional clarification provided on the responsibility of delegates and current council practices in managing a potential breach to delegation, and that's very important. The removal of a table of financial delegations limited as they are contained elsewhere, and the removal of the contract variations as they are contained elsewhere. The review and adoption of this amended policy, and that's what it is, aims to ensure that the decisions made under delegation will continue to be exercised in a transparent manner and in accordance with the limitations set by Council. And it's another one of our updating of policies, and I commend it to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just reading through that, it is important that Council maintain appropriate policies and guidelines under which delegation are to be exercised. This ensures individuals and committees are making the decisions within the powers and the functions delegated to them. And here lies the crux of the issue. This item really is a tick and a flick, if you like, but that undersells the scrutiny and debate that councillors have in the lead up to items that are placed on the agenda. Councillor Spinks, who's not here today, but has put on record very publicly the hours that is poured over by by the councillors for each item that comes up on the agenda, and indeed by council staff who are putting it together as well. And this is to ensure that we have the best governance practices adopted at all times. This policy is no different to any other in that respect, but it isn't just a tick and a flick. We have looked over it, and for my mind, I'm very, very comfortable with it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? No. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you. Another issue that people might be aware of from in the paper, there was a payment that went over the amount that apparently we're supposed to pay. This was not something that we had any control over. However, it's a statutory payment that would have been the same amount regardless of whether we had to pay it through that process or not. So we've got legal advice saying that we haven't actually done anything wrong, but I wouldn't like to test that in court. So there's still a few little bits and pieces we'll need to iron out as this delegation policy rolls out. But we do review these so regularly. I'm sure if there's any hiccups, we can just bring it back to a meeting and fix it up again. But it's good. It's a good policy in terms of being transparent and being accountable. And things do happen, but we do our absolute best and keep our due diligence hat on. And yeah, so I'm happy to support the motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think this is basically a procedural motion in effect. These changes were initiated by changes in the Local Government Act, obviously, and some of our own instruments. So the motion before us is that we adopt the exercise of delegations policy as attached, as it was said. So yeah, it's just a procedural motion. I fully support it. These changes need to have been made, and no doubt we will review them again periodically, so I have no problem whatsoever.
Right, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to agenda item 11.3, which is on page 18 of the agenda, which is the July 2022 monthly financial reports. There is a recommendation. Can I please have the council put that forward as a motion?
Thank you.
Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council receive and note the July 2022 monthly financial report as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Being 1 month in doesn't tell us a lot, but the executive summary report details tells us that the 2022-23 budget was adopted at the ordinary council meeting held in June of 2022, and it provided for an accounting surplus, and that's all it is an accounting surplus of 29.5 million. It's interesting to note that looking at the 1 month into the year, and we've got the details here, the adjusted underlying surplus as a percentage of underlying revenue is an interesting graph, and it tells us that the actual year-to-date figure is 84.36%. The adopted budget suggested a 16.92%, so we're well in front, and that's a very healthy way to be. It also tells us the other interesting thing is, from the community's point of view, that loans and borrowings as a percentage of rates, and this is an important issue because if the rates are looking after too much loan interest, well, we've got a problem. However, our loans and borrowings as a percentage of rates to date for 1 month is 24.4%, and the budget is 24.4%, and the adopted budget is 21.23%. So that tells us after 1 month that we're pretty well on track. In terms of the working capital, the current assets as a percentage of the current liabilities, and again, this means that the affordable cash that's there over the the existing liabilities. We've got an actual current asset of 335% of actual current assets over the current liabilities. Now, that's a very healthy position to be in at this particular time. Some may say that, perhaps we can afford just to do something with that extra cash, but at this stage, let's keep it where it is. The asset renewal and upgrade, look, that's not telling us too much because we're into the first month into it, but it tells us that our year-to-date actuals of asset renewals and upgrades as a percentage of depreciation is only 53.3%. You'd expect it to be that sort of figure and 1 month in, with the adopted budget suggested that we're going to be around about 140%, which is where it ought to be. So it'll be interesting to see how that figure progresses over the year. The investments, again, much the same as they have been in previous years. I always like to look at the green deposits, and $6 million has been invested in green deposits. I think we're doing our bit. We have a policy in respect to climate emergency, and this is one help. The operating statement, again, look, it's 1 year in. It shows an operating revenue of 100 million and an operating expense of 13. It doesn't mean much because...
Dobson, would you like an extension?
Yes, thank you.
Granted.
What we've done is we've accrued all the rates and charges coming in, but we haven't done it similar to the expenses. So it's the figures will level out as we go on. Perhaps that's all I need to talk about. Councillor Abdullah might wish to highlight other areas.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. You have explained everything very well. I just want to, just looking at the performance indicators, I just want to remind everyone that we have to closely watch our operating performance. If we look at the graphs here, adjusted underlying surplus or deficit as a percentage of underlying revenue. At the moment, year-to-date actuals and year-to-date adopted budget is going fine, but the projected full year is actually giving a not so positive picture. It is below our target band, so every indicator has a target, so that's where our actual values should lie. But of course, our adjusted underlying surplus as a percentage of underlying revenue is not so satisfactory at the end, towards the end. So again, it goes to show us that we have to, while we are developing our budget, we have to be very careful and examine very carefully all the sources of revenue and our operating and our adjusted underlying surplus. At the moment, we are in deficit. It has been in deficit for a few years, and if you want to ensure our councils as an organization, its financial sustainability, we have to work on it. So that's all that I would say. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors, that would like to speak against the motion? No. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 20 of the agenda, item 11.4, contracts awarded under delegation, July 2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation 11.4, contracts awarded under delegation, July 2022, on page 20 of the agenda. I'll read out the recommendation, and that is that the council, 1, note the contracts awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal tender or quotation process for the reporting period, and number 2, note the requests for tenders advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor James. Yep. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Summer. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. These are contracts and tenders from the 1st of July until the 31st of July. Contracts awarded under delegated authority by the Chief Executive Officer or Director. There are 3 projects. One is the installation of tree bud lighting in Shepparton and Tatura, and that's awarded to Watters Electrical. Number 2 is the provision of Heritage Advisory Services, 2022 to 2024, and that was awarded to Heritage Concepts Proprietary Limited. And the third one in this category is a preparation of traffic impact assessment, the industrial growth corridor, because there are many growth corridors that we do have within our municipality, and that goes to Traffic's Group Proprietary Limited. The second part, Mayor Sally, on that one was the second part was the request for the tenders advertised but not yet awarded. There are 4 tenders currently, and these include the SAM precinct works, and that's playground, barbecue shelters. And then the second is the provision of tree maintenance and services. Third is the Wellsford Street Stage 4 upgrade, and the fourth is the intersection upgrade of Wheeler Street and New Dookie Road. The additional information to that in our agenda, Mayor Sally, is no tenders were received in relation to contract 2240, and that's a Talagaripna Children's Centre upgrade, and this will be re-tendered at a later date. And then the other second point to that is the tender process for the contract 2172, provision of cleaning services for SAM building, has now been abandoned, and there's more information to follow about the instrument of delegation, which I won't go into at this stage. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Great, thank you, councillor James. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. This is my favourite part of the agenda. It's very transparent how this is included. It doesn't have to be included, but essentially the Chief Executive Officer can award a contract up to $500,000 and the directors can approve a contract up to $150,000 for goods and services and $200,000 for works. And everything else gets put in here just so that we have an idea on where the money's being spent. Oh, so yeah, everything under that gets put in here so that we have an idea on how that's being done. And so far, these are usually community-focused, fun things that either need to be done or it's just that little bit extra. Obviously, it's not going to break the bank in terms of tree bud lighting, but when some people in the community see the cost of tree bud lighting being almost $300,000, there's always that question mark. Things do cost more in local government, and we see that under these contracts awarded. Yeah, it's my favourite part, like I said. Great to see it spread across all the municipalities and not just Shepparton, and I look forward to delivering most of these.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No? Before we go any further, I might just get some clarification, just because on the tree bud lighting, although it is expensive, we did receive a grant. Is that right, Geraldine? What was that specifically under? Sorry to put you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the tree.
The outdoor dining.
Yes.
Grant.
Yeah, sorry to do that to you, but I just wanted to clarify that it is.
Yeah, it's
comes from a grant, so.
But not all our costs,
Yes. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to agenda item 11.5, which is instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer, S5. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Abdullah.
that was the one.
I'll read. The recommendation on page 23. I move that recommendation as a motion. Recommendation has 4 points printed in this agenda, and I will add one more point, which is point number 5, that the CEO to write a letter to the local government minister seeking clarification of the term expenditure in the Local Government Act 2020 in context of council's recent internal audit findings.
Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Just like the previous agenda item, would councillors require councillor Abdullah to read that out again? Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
Second that motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Brophy.
It's quicker than me.
Younger.
Straighten it up. Councillor Brophy. Yeah.
Yes.
You second that motion?
I did.
Thank you. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. So as we know that delegation is a very important governance tool. The most important delegation issued by the council is to the Chief Executive Officer. And the last review of the CEO's delegations was done in June 2022. And this next review within a month is basically triggered by council's internal audit, which detected $72,000 spent over the CEO's financial expenditure limit of $2 million. Now, the review of this instrument, which is called S5, instrument of delegation to the CEO, it includes an increase in the limit of CEO's financial expenditure limit from the current limit to $4 million. This is only for the non-discretionary expenses, such as fire levy collection and transfer to the state government. So this total amount of the fire levy that council collects on behalf of the state government was slightly over the delegated limit as per the internal audit. And council proactively sought a legal advice which suggested that this could be considered as a breach, but it is a very conservative view, and council now aims to proactively take measures to protect against any future breaches of this kind. Also because the fire levy collection amount is expected to go above the current limit, and we want to avoid this breach and any delays in having to go back to council for approval of this amount. So it is only reasonable to increase the limit of this expenditure. The report also talks about the current inconsistency in the interpretation of the term expenditure in Local Government Act when it comes to this kind of this type of statutory obligation of transfer of fire levy funds, because not every council applies the financial expenditure limit to this transaction. There is some kind of inconsistency across the board. So the fifth point that I have added to this recommendation basically gives directions to the CEO to write a letter to the local government minister and seek clarification. And it is about clarifying that whether the collection of fire levy is an expenditure where the financial expenditure limit has to be applied, or is it not? Right now, different councils are having different views, and that's why this motion has been put forward. So I'm comfortable with the updates in the instrument of delegation to the CEO.
Great, thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saleh. Just following on from Councillor Abdullah, who put it nicely. The reason why this is here really is an unintended technical breach. It was due to an increase in the levy. And hence, this is why we're here to address it, pretty much. If you look at it, the money that comes in, it's in a holding or a trust fund, if you like. And we're here to seek clarification, obviously, from the Minister as to the ambiguity of this, because some councils do treat this as an expense and some do not. And therefore, as the levy increases, so too should the CEO threshold to administer such fiduciaries, because this is really important that we make sure that these unintended breaches don't happen again. And the clarification in the document that's put forward in 1.3 is where expenditure is made, and 1.33, which council is by or under legislation required to making expenditure that exceeds $4 million ex GST. It means that if we increase it from the $2 million to the $4 million, we're not going to have an issue where we have to come back next month or the month after or even next year. But there should be enough gap in that if the levies increase, it's money in, it's money out, and there's no technical breaches again. So we're really protecting our CEO in that respect. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like... Sorry, Councillor.
Yes, thank you.
Speak against?
Against. I'm just not sure, just because we made arguably a mistake on overspending by about 72,000. I'm not sure that justifies increasing the expenditure to 4 million, and it was currently 2 million, so we're essentially doubling it for something that only went over by a small amount, and we're putting things in place to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I don't think that that's necessary, and I don't think the wording as well, it's 1.3.3, which council is by or under legislation required to making expenditure that exceeds 4 million. So which council is by or under legislation required to make? I'm just not sure that that's clear enough to say that it's a statutory payment that we have no control over. So there might be loopholes in there. That's why I don't think it should necessarily be doubled. But that's just my opinion.
That's okay, thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Summer's commentary, yes, from 2 million to 4 million sounds extraordinary when you think of it like that. We could have adopted some other measures. We could have keep coming back to council and addressing this issue each time it arose and approving it prior. But it's about being efficient, I think, and probably the best outcome. And it's pretty specific. I mean, it's obviously up to 4 million where the payment is non-discretionary and required in the fulfilment of a statutory duty. So that's pretty specific. I can't see anyone going outside those guidelines. And if by some strange experience in the future that does happen, well, we can certainly address it, but it can't happen because that would be a breach under that particular point. So I have no issue with it. We could have, as I said, kept coming back to council, but it's not really in line with our efficiency protocols of this council. So I have no issue with it whatsoever, and I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Before I go to Councillor Abdullah's right of reply, are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. I think there are two words here that are paramount to this policy, and that is discretionary and non-discretionary. Discretionary is where you may or may not have to pay the amount of money, but non-discretionary is where you are made to pay it by some other agency, most likely a state or federal government. In this case, it was a fire services levy. We have no say in it. They determine what the amount is based on certain factors, and you pay it whether you like it or not. If it was discretionary, we might say, no, we don't have to pay. So non-discretionary is the important factor here, and I think the limit of $4 million takes into account, as already been mentioned, that over the next few years, we don't quite know where this is going to end up in terms of non-discretionary spending through state and federal government. We really don't know, mainly state government, I should say. So I'm fully supportive of the policy.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah, we'll now give you a right of reply.
Thank you. I think Councillor Adam and Councillor Dobson has kind of addressed all the concerns raised by Councillor Summers, so I do not have to add anything to that, and I'm comfortable with this form.
Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 27 of the agenda, 11.6, Councillor Appointment, Greater Shepparton Aerodrome Advisory Committee. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation under 11.6, Councillor Appointment, Greater Shepparton Aerodrome Advisory Committee on page 27 of the agenda. I'll read out the recommendation. That the Council appoint Councillor Adam to the Greater Shepparton Aerodrome Advisory Committee effective from the 17th of August 2022.
Thank you, Councillor James. Before we get a second, Councillor Adam, do you accept that?
I do indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I please have someone second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion. Thank you, Mayor Sally.
Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Thankfully, Councillor Adam did accept that. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. As part of the Council's community consultation, communication and advocacy role, councillors and officers are represented on various community organisations and government agency groups, as well as the purpose groups appointed by the Council. Following Councillor Priestley's recent resignation from the Council, a vacancy existed in the Council representation on the Greater Shepparton Aerodrome Advisory Committee, which has occurred. This report seeks to fill this position by appointing Councillor Adam to this committee. Councillor representation on committees is currently reviewed on an annual basis following the election of the mayor. Excuse me. At times, vacancies may occur throughout the year, which can prompt a need to review committee appointments earlier than scheduled, as the case in Councillor Priestley's. Councillor Adam was elected to the Council via a count-back system held on the 6th of July 2022, and we welcome him back onto Council, and is recommended for appointment to the committee to serve the remainder of the current term, which will be due for next review following the mayoral elections this year. Can I just say that we'd like to thank Councillor Adam for filling this position, and also thank the previously appointed Councillor Priestley for his contribution prior to his resignation to this council. So thank you, Councillor.
Great, thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, thank you, Mayor Sally. Just very briefly, that in recent times I've met with a number of users, airdrome users, who have got a number of issues in and around the airport. And, you know, some of the issues have been in regards to some of the maintenance and a number of flight path issues, and as well as the pressures of the growth of residential properties coming in and around it as well. I've always been of the opinion that it's buyer beware. in the sense that the airport was literally miles out of town for many decades, and that the encroachment is by the development, very much the same as Essendon Airport and Tullamarine Airport as we see now. So the decommissioning of this particular site to another site or anything else, there are complex issues there. So I'm very, very thankful that Councillor Adam has put his hand up for this, and I look forward to him getting in and representing council on this advisory committee. Well done.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Adam.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I take this committee role on with great pleasure, actually. In my previous life on council, I sat on many committees, many and varied. This one I hadn't had an opportunity to do so. I think it's a great way for councils to actually get involved and engage with different sectors of the community. This is one that I haven't been involved in before, not to this extent or not to this direct extent, although there was great discussions many years ago about the proposed new airport in Shepparton. I think those conversations have sort of died off slightly, but they're still simmering in the background. Maybe I can reinvigorate that conversation. That being said, I'm looking forward to getting involved and doing what I can in this role.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Before we go to the vote, obviously similar to Councillor Summer, congratulations on being appointed to this committee. I'm sure you do well, and wish you all the best with it. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 29 of the agenda, 11.7, Microsoft licence contract renewal. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. The recommendation is that council authorise the CEO to enter into a 3-year licensing contract with Microsoft, valued at an estimated total value of $1,347,351 ex GST.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I please have a councillor second that motion?
Second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sarley. Currently, the Microsoft licence with council is due to expire at the end of this particular month. So a new licence proposal has been put forward for 3 years, and it will enable the organisation to really access a broader range of Microsoft Office and security tools, including the full Office 365 application suite, providing a better support for hybrid working. Now, this is just, and it is a sound business sense, and it comes to us as an operational item, really, which is quite surprising because we normally have strategic, because the purchase price for this particular item is over the threshold of what's normally allowed in regards to just operational purchasing. So it's not a strategic planning thing, but it is a credit to the purchasing team that they have negotiated and saved ratepayers substantial monies that was going to be the original purchase price. So well done on negotiating. It seems pretty high, but if you're in that particular business, if you're in a corporate sense and you're wanting to, if you've got that many employees and you've got that many contracts and different departments that require this sort of software, this is what you need to put up in order to be very efficient for the next 3 years.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I can't add too much more, Mr Mayor, but this is the environment we work in. This is something we must do. It's really a necessity. Sometimes I think most corporations and councils we're held hostage to this technology, unfortunately, but we don't have any other options. I think this is a good decision. We could reach in excess of $100,000 per annum by going this way rather than some other options. So it's a necessity. I'm sure we'll make good use of it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No, councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 33 of the agenda, item 12.1, Destination Branding Project Report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I move that the council adopt the new destination brand Shepparton and Goulburn Valley and the destination brand manual as attached. It will be circular as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I please have someone second that motion? Councillors, I need a seconder.
I'll second that motion, Mayor Sarley.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
There's been a lot of work done on this particular item, and what has been identified is that our visitors come in probably four main areas. Those people who are looking for an easy break, say from the Melbourne metropolitan area, people who like to come up here all the time, and we call them fun time followers, would be following sporting events or cultural events. Those who like our cultural aspects of what we have to offer, and there are many and varied, and of course there are business visitors that come in as well. And we've got to set up a program, and I think this program does set up an opportunity for all those people to be involved. Council's visitor economy program has had a strong major events focus, and this year that has been brought to bear. We've had the White Nights, and also there are many other sporting and cultural events. However, it's been suggested that in order for the local visitor economy to become more resilient and sustainable, we've got to, and in providing long-lasting economic benefits to our region, events need to be balanced with other more permanent homegrown tourism products and experiences. And council, in fact, has already started that. Things like the investment in Shepparton Art Museum, for example, which is already starting to show its mettle. The Museum of Vehicle Evolution, MOVE, is also another one that's attracting. I'd also add into that, which is not in the report, but from a personal point of view, I'd add in the Australian Botanic Gardens at Coachella. I think that is becoming more and more of an attraction, that people actually come to Shepparton area, and I commend people, our visitors, to go out and have a look at it. So we've got to leverage off these investments in these key assets for the wider visitor economy. Current tourism branding, brand positioning focuses on holistic visitor experiences, including motivating emotional factors that connect audiences to a region, and characteristics of these audience groups which regions leverage through brand messaging. However, to encourage our post-COVID recovery, we must have something more permanent in our area. Having a clearly defined brand, and this branding went through quite a big process of various names and different variations. And I believe that the branding that they've come up with really highlights Shepparton and brings in the Goulburn Valley at the same time. So there's two factors, Shepparton and the wider community, and I think they've done an excellent job. We need a clearly defined brand. That's what's been highlighted. And it's got to be accepted not only by us, but it's got...
Would you like an extension?
Thank you.
Granted.
It's got to be accepted by the industry, and it's got to be distinctive from other regional areas. We've all got our own areas of expertise or places to see. So we've got to produce our own. The council finds its place in the tourism landscape, and we've got to find it and we've got to own it. This particular document and this report, in fact, shows that. The potential names considered were the Greater Shepparton region, Visit Shepparton, Explore Greater Shepparton, Shepparton and Surrounds, and Shepparton and Goulburn Valley. And I believe Shepparton and Goulburn Valley highlights. There are more things that we could say about that, but I'll leave it to others.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saleh. This has been a very thoroughly researched and analysed report. It's very much gone out to wide engagement and, of course, huge public consultation and great stakeholders in the area as well. So Coupler, being the organisation that was awarded this project report to, have come back to us with that. Branding post-COVID is so important for this particular region, and I'm 90% there with it. I think that they have the right market pitch, they have the correct demographic pool that they need, and what is appealing to visitors and also homegrown day trippers, if you like. I'm not entirely sold on the colour scheme as an attractive, eye-catching logo, but then again, you could ask 100 people and get 100 different views on the logo and the colour scheme. Everybody's different in that regards. So I'm really behind pushing our tourism credentials to the world. And I often say, see Greater Shepparton, see SEE, stay, eat, enjoy.
Excellent.
Councillor Brophy, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Okay, are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, I've heard a few councillors talk about how much work and effort has gone into developing this logo especially, which is the case, $50,000 worth of research and development. And no doubt the previous logo, which I was quite familiar with and actually liked it. I thought it stood out a lot more than all our so-called competitors in that market. And I'm sure a lot of money in research and development was spent on that as well. So it's very subjective, as Councillor Brophy said, as to whether you like the font, which I don't, but anyway, that's my opinion. That being said, I'm more concerned about what's behind the brand, not what the actual logo is. The logo is what it is. It'll become synonymous with what we supply or what we actually deliver behind it, and that's what I'm more concerned with, and that's what I think. They've done a lot of work there, and I appreciate that work, and I commend that work. I just hope all that work does actually result in some better regional tourism figures, which I'm hoping it will.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. And what I like about this is that we've done most of this internally. In the past, we would pay a third party to include Greater Shepparton under their broad tourist banner of regional Victoria, and often we were put last on things. So this is nice. We've given direction that we wanted to drive some of this ourselves, and here we have the results. And I'm with some of the other councillors here that the palette, it probably isn't my cup of tea either, but I am not an expert. And as Councillor Adams said, we'll just wait and see, look at the stats and see whether these images become synonymous with Greater Shepparton and how that translates across the tourism industry. So I am supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? All right, councillors, will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 42, item 12.2, which is Draft River Connect Strategic Plan 2023 to 2028 for community consultation. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah.
I would like to put the recommendation on page 42 as a motion, which says that the council release the draft River Connect Strategic Plan 2023-2028 for community consultation for a period of 6 weeks, commencing on 22nd August 2022 and concluding on 30th September 2022 as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Councillor James. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Just very quickly, River Connect is an excellent program. It's a community government partnership. It started in 2005. And the primary purpose of this program is to connect our rivers with our community and to collectively promote and care for the river environment. So this River Connect program has had many achievements in the past many years. Some of them I can just quote, and it's available in the report. We have seen that through this program we have received successful grants from, we have been successful in receiving grants from federal and state government for our shared path network upgrades. The river program has been, I think, instrumental in increasing the awareness of and participation in the river environment through different education programs, different events, and some hands-on planting kind of events. They also, I think on a regular basis, they do rubbish removal, which is a very good exercise. It involves all the community. They have programs such as weeding and nest box building. So there's a lot that's happening in that space, and there's a River Connect Implementation Advisory Committee, as we all know, which has representation from the council. We have councillor representations also on the committee, and there are stakeholders and different organizations such as Golden Broken Catchment Management Authority. We have Yora Nations. We have Department of Education and Training. So many organizations are included in this partnership. And we have all worked together to come up with a draft strategic plan for the next 5 years. In the past 5 years, as the report highlights, that there have been many changes that we have seen globally and locally. And locally, we have seen our population growth, we have seen recognition of traditional owners, the increasing awareness around those issues, such as recognition of traditional owners and climate change. We've also seen, of course, COVID-19, which has put so much emphasis on outdoor activities, on our health and well-being. So all of that has been taken into account while drafting this plan. And this strategic plan has a few focus areas. Of course, some of them, they include engaging with the community, inspiring the education sector, improving health and well-being, and having strong partnerships and good governance. So under all those focus areas, many action items have been highlighted. Now, what we want to do is, so there's a sort of whole range of actions and items basically that have been outlined in the draft plan. At this stage, we now want to hear from the community, whether they agree with the plan, whether they have other ideas that they want us to include in this plan. So that's why we want to release the draft strategic plan for a community consultation process. So I'm very excited, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all the fantastic ideas that will come through this process. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. It's always difficult to follow from Councillor Abdullah because she just about covers everything, so it doesn't leave me much space, and she was saved by the bell, of course. No, look, the current strategic plan has been reviewed, and a draft plan for 2023 to 28 has been developed in consultation with partnerships. Some key changes to consider through there: traditional owners' knowledge and empowering decision making, and all the important role of caring for country, which is very important for our people. Our culture is that caring for country, and this is something that River Connect program does very, very well in regards to respecting the caring for country and the need for that too as well. I had the privilege of sitting on the committee for my first term, and I really enjoyed that role. A couple of things to really, the key change to consider in the strategic plan, of course, is not along with the traditional owners, but also COVID-19 and various changes that we have to adapt through that. The climate changes too as well. Our climate is changing. We need to adapt to that climate changes, but also more importantly is the water flows too as well, and we know that Councillor Dobson, through his involvement through the Murray-Darling system, has highlighted and indicated to us the wearers the need for us to consider the Goulburn River and the water flows here. The Goulburn River, or Coachella River in our language, of course, is a very important part of that highway, that water transfer in our community. And we have to consider the environmental flows here too well, the speed of the flows of the river. So that's something that the River Connect program does consider, and I'd like our community to also consider that too as well, and have some comment on that in our consultation process. It's the speed of the flows, it's the transport of water systems from down onwards in regards to our harvesting process. It's very important for our growers in our immediate area to have some input into that plan as well. But it's vitally for us to consider the scarring and the rate of that flow too as very important issues to consider, not only for the Goulburn River but also for the Murray as it flows into that. So there are a number of other key focus areas to consider for the next 5 years. There's lots and lots of issues that we want community consultation. So I encourage the community members to provide that all-important advice and information in regards to this really important area. There are pathways to consider too as well. Our network of our pathways is growing, and it's a fantastic network, and we want that all-important community advice along with our key stakeholders as well. Saved by the bell. Thank you.
Great work. Thank you, Councillor James. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you. Sally, I note on this map that there are 6 camping sites along the Goulburn River, and that's probably an area that hasn't been highlighted very much, and I'd certainly like to see some additional work done on that, because everybody tells us that the Goulburn River has been forgotten. Well, there's a chance here. We've identified some camping areas, and I'd like to see that sort of thing expanded. The other thing that I'd like to see, and I'll get on my high horse again about the Botanic Gardens out there, even though that it's identified on the map, there is no discussion on this plan for Botanic Gardens. And so what I'd urge all those people who have got an interest in the Botanic Gardens to get on their emails and put in their submissions to this plan in order for it, we make sure that the Australian Botanic Gardens get included in this strategic plan, because it's a very important part. It's on the joining of the Broken and Goulburn rivers, and of course we've just had the big bridge that have been put across the Broken River, and that's joining the north and the south. So I think it's very important, as we said previously, that the gardens out there will become a permanent tourist attraction over the years, and it's a dynamic part of the River Connect strategic plan. So I urge anybody who's got an interest out there in the care for the rare or the plantings of endangered species to certainly put in their 2 bobs worth in the consultation process.
Great, thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors that speak against the motion? Are there any other councillors that speak to the motion? We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 50 of the agenda, item 13.1, dissolving of the Sir Murray Boucher Memorial Advisory Committee. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Please have someone put that forward as a motion. Thank you, Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I put forward a recommendation that the council formally acknowledge the contribution and dedication of past and current community members to the establishment of the Battle of Beersheba Memorial, and 2, to formally dissolve the Sir Murray Boucher Memorial Advisory Committee.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I please have someone second that motion?
I'll second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Adam. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Sarley. Of course, any dissolving of any committee is a sad occasion, but this is not. This is actually a happy occasion because it's a project that's been delivered and delivered successfully. So on the 24th of April this year, the statue of a horse and rider depicting the Battle of Beersheba and local soldier, farmer and politician Sir Murray Boucher was unveiled at the Queen's Gardens. Now, this is a long time coming because it really commenced more than a decade ago, back in 2010, where a working group was put together with different representatives from the RSL and other interested parties. By June in 2013, the Sir Murray Boucher Memorial Working Group became the Sir Murray Boucher Memorial Advisory Committee, with the role of advising committee to the council to be able to obviously work really hard to get the funding and to get the memorial in place. And this has been very, very successful in that regards. And, you know, we had finally a contract given out and awarded to the late Paul Smits, his design, which was successfully awarded there. Unfortunately, Paul passed away during the construction of the statue, and Evan from the foundry picked up the task and finished off the really good work. We had COVID, we had a number of setbacks in terms of having it delivered, but to have it done just before Anzac Day and to be opened there at the Queen's Garden was really quite significant. There's a couple of things I'd like to mention in regards to that, and that's certainly how Council is recognising the substantial contribution by all the committee members, past and present. And I'd like to pick out a few, if you don't mind there, particularly 2, and that being Jeanette Powell and the late Peter Mcphee. Peter, of course, representing the RSL at the time. And both Jeanette and Peter, and I remember going back quite some time ago when I was in a different role, knocking on the door to try and get funding and to try and get some interest in regards to that. In getting this memorial and recognition to Sir Murray Boucher. And of course, it was taken up by local member at the time, member for Murray, and then Nichols, Damien Drum. But it was really the advocacy then of the Veteran Affairs Minister, Darren Chester, who would come to the fore in terms of helping the funding from the federal government. And of course, council was very, very diligent in trying to put all this together as well. So well done, Jeanette, and well done, Peter, and his family, of course, supporting him in being able to put this forward. But there were other committee members who were on this as well. Peter Martin, Robert Wilkie, Rodney Davidson, John Harrington, Darren Linton, Russ Marshall Richards, of course the Boucher family as well, and without them the contribution wouldn't have been able to be what it was. And also to the councillors who over the years were on that particular advisory committee as well. Kudos to them, and also the council staff.
Would you like an extension?
Yes, please, thank you. Thank you. Also to the council staff, and in particular, I mean, there was so many to mention, but Liam Moller deserves absolutely special recognition in regards to that as well. And can I say that, you know, I could talk about the extol the virtues of Sir Murray Boucher, which I have done previously after that particular unveiling. But Sir Murray Boucher was a man who cared very much and was very concerned about soldiers, about his own community, and it's very fitting that Boucher Street, of course, and Boucher Street Primary School have actually a comfort dog there, a Groodle. And guess what? The Groodle's name is Murray. And it's a really nice way of a legacy for Sir Murray Boucher in a more personalised and caring and concerned way. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. As my fellow councillor here on my left said earlier on, in regard to Councillor Abdullah, it's a bit difficult speaking after Councillor Brophy. He's obviously relayed all the relevant facts and statistics, and very well as well. But I might give you just a little bit of background. I was on council at the time during probably a big chunk of this 10 years where the decisions were made. We had a couple of councillors on that committee. I recall seeing some draft designs of the sculpture downstairs, where the horse is the size of an elephant, if you recall. And we all sort of looked at that in wonderment, thinking, well, this can't be the one. But in any case, a lot of controversy as well. So I'd like to also thank the committee members, because it wasn't easy. There was a lot of different opinions. One on the aggressive stance of the actual statue, and of Sir Murray Boucher on the horse with the gun. It's got to be mentioned, that was out there at the time. It's probably not a design that I would have gone for. However, the committee played with this for a long time. There was differing opinions on that committee as well, because I spoke to a lot of those people on there. So that's why it's a difficult task. In the end, they've compromised. That's the design. It's very well executed. That's pretty obvious. I think it's a fantastic piece of art, not just a memorial. So great work for the committee. It's been dissolved, obviously. Their work is done. The legacy that will remain, not only for Murray Boucher or Sir Murray Boucher, but also for the committee who helped achieve that outcome. So congratulations to the ex-committee people, and better things for the future in regard to that.
Great, thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Just one thing, I'd personally like to, I'd like just to talk about the late Peter Mcphee. When I was last on council, Peter and I had lots of talks about this, and he really pushed it hard. He was president of the RSL, and he's a great fellow, Peter Mcphee. And I'd like his family to know that we do recognise his initial work. And Councillor Adam talked about the controversy. It was controversial where it should go, the look and feel of the whole thing. So. But Peter, really pushed, and it was good that the council and the community got together. But in closing, just recognition of the Mcphee family. I hope they do rest easy knowing that the late Peter Mcphee, his wishes came true. The vital analysis.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, and I'll just have some closing comments before we go to the vote, and obviously echo the comments of Councillor Brophy, Adam and Dobson, who put it perfectly, highlighting the significant amount of work that's gone in over a long period of time, the dedication to volunteers being involved in this committee. You've highlighted the late Peter Mcphee as well, and I back up those comments there as well. So congratulations on being able to achieve this significant project, and well done to your contribution. So thank you. We will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 53 of the agenda, item 13.2, Our Sporting Future Funding Round 3, 2021-2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
I'll move the recommendation as printed on page 53 as a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I please have someone second that motion?
I'll second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Adam. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, we have these grants to assist community organisations through whether they want to upgrade their facilities, whether they want to include women's change rooms, if they want to do all sorts of things sporting related. And generally these are quite large grants, which has a very positive flow-on effect. You know that sport's integral to regional areas in terms of socialisation and health, and we want to support kids and adults to get active and healthy.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'll try and be just as short and sweet as Councillor. This is an existing program. It covers a vast array of different portions of our community. These two are highlighted here, the Telegripper Netball Club, and the Shepparton Swimming Club. Again, worthwhile, great activities for younger people to keep active and engaged. It's not a huge amount of money, really, but it makes a huge difference to their clubs.
Of course.
Supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just very briefly is that this is a terrific fund. It is, I'm looking at this, the Telegripper Football Netball Club, for instance, establishing a junior football program. And to be able to get funding like that to help towards jumpers and the establishment of the football program, particularly post-COVID, where we've seen a lot of sports that have dropped off. A lot of participation has dropped off. So this will just absolutely help people out there in Telegripper and in and around the area, as will the Shepparton Swimming Club as well. Two great sports, swimming and obviously advancing coaching and development in regards to that as well. Have a look at the criteria. I urge all clubs out there with junior sport and with those that are lacking participation and need funding, have a look at the criteria, and if you think you match the criteria, please put in an application. It's there.
Yeah, no. Councillor Brophy, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sally. Just quickly, just want to highlight that I'm particularly pleased to see that there's been an application in the category of women's and girls sports category. This is a relatively new category in our Sporting Future Grants program, and it is definitely, I think it's achieving its purpose because we have seen interest and we've got this application. And it is, I'm sure that it will help and encourage women to participate in sports and also, have multiple positive outcomes, health and well-being and inclusion and gender equality, and from all those perspectives. So yeah, I'm very pleased to see, and of course in general, to see that there's a good response for this grant.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 58 of the agenda, which is item 14, confidential management reports, 14.1, which is designation of confidentiality of information reports. Councillors, there is a recommendation there. Can I also put that forward as a motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation as printed on page 58 of the agenda is that pursuant to section 661 of the Local Government Act 2020, resolved that the council meeting be closed to members of the public for consideration of the following confidential item: deed of appointment of a syndic, Mcphee Road, Ripner.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a councillor please second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. All those in favour? Thank you. We will now close the meeting for the confidential item. Thank you and welcome back. Item 15, documents for signing and sealing, nil received. We now go to page 59 of the agenda, item 16, which is councillor reports and councillor activities. 16.1.1, councillor activities for July 2022. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I please have a councillor second that? Councillor James. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. This is another really good section of the agenda that demonstrates transparency. People watching at home might not realise what we do on a day-to-day basis, but a large part of our role is attending as many events within the community as possible. Every time we go to a new event, we learn something new, we meet someone, there's a little bit of information or a little bit of a perspective that we hadn't seen before. So it's great to see such a long list post-COVID again. You can see in here that there's quite a lot of involvement for the NAIDOC week for 2022, which is really great to see. And also that we're still pursuing the affordable housing options through a reference group meeting that was a recent endeavour. And you can just peruse these and see just how diverse our community really is. I mean, if you're having morning tea with the Fairley Foundation, you could be going over to Rotary, which is fantastic, basketball, so sports, culture, people, we've got it all. And I just want to encourage anyone at home, if they see these sorts of events pop up and it's a community event and you're not sure, you've never been before, just make an effort to go, because you just never know what might come from it, and it's just great to be connected to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor James, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. It's great to see that we are slowly coming back into a bit of normality, and so that the councillors' activities are slowly returning, and we're getting back to, as I said, normality. It's been a busy month for us, and can I just say thank you to all the community and our to the broader community for inviting councillors out as well. So it's good for us to get out. It's really important for us to be out, to be seen. And Councillor Summers touched on a couple of those, and as I'll just reiterate, it was great to see NAIDOC Week. It's a great week, but also what was really pleasing to see this year, and the growing number of non-Indigenous people supporting that activity. It's a great week, and that's the whole aims of that week is to encourage non-Indigenous people to involve in the celebrations. Really encouraging to see the numbers we're increasing. A couple other things, and Councillor Summers touched on a few of them. The Squash International presentations, and as Councillor Brakey said, we had teams from China, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and all states and territories throughout Victoria. Now that's a huge bonus for us. Again, that just reiterates our strength to hold functions within our community. The neighbourhood houses, the networking and morning tea. A couple of councillors, we had that, and I found that very stimulating, because the number of the great work that our neighbourhood houses do in our community is exceptional. It is really, really exceptional. Not only the 4 neighbourhood houses here in Shepparton in our region, but you look at Tatura, Murchison, Toolamba, and these are the heartlands. They are the heartlands of our communities. So it's really encouraging to sit and listen to them too as well, do a presentation. And then the other ones that, the Verney Road, the state budget, the funding celebration, well, that's something that we've all joined into. The National Tree, in Maribna too as well. That was a great opportunity for us to reiterate all of the programs that we do within the council too as well. The councillors' visit to Tatura, again, that was for us to get out to the community, and that was and that's something that we've done on a couple of occasions too as well. And that's reinforcing what we need to do on a consistent basis. There's heaps of other things. Basketball Victoria's got some great some plans coming up for this year and into next year as well. The Murray-Darling Association, the Region 2 meeting with Councillor Dobson's as well. The Furphy Literacy Awards and the ceremony, and also the Junior and the youth category awards are that. So important for our community. So there are lots and lots of things, and it's great that we're involved. Thank you. Saved again by the bell. Perfect. It is on time.
Better at this.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's many and varied subjects and different organisations that were visited by councillors and meetings, and that's fantastic. The larger the list gets, that just indicates the extra engagement that councillors have. I just want to point one there with the information session for the Italian community. The Consul General of Italy, a newly appointed woman, very impressive actually credentials. She was Italy's representative to the UN actually on security matters. So this person was probably one of the best credentialed people we've had visit Shepparton in a long time. A very nice lady, very personable as well. She expressed interest in that small conversation I had with her of engaging with Greater Shepparton for potential exports. As a Consul General, that's one of their roles, is to engage in actual trade. She's expressed interest in coming to Shepparton, and I'm hoping we can do it in the future. My point is that out of these meetings and some of these incidental type engagements, great things can come, especially. So I encourage councillors to attend as many of these as possible, because you just don't know who you'll meet and what discussions will come from it. So,
very good point. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 61 of the agenda, item 16.1.2, Hort Connections. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. The recommendation is that the council receive and note Councillor Shane Sarley's report, Hort Connections.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
I'll second that motion. Adam. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, thank you, and thank you very much, Mayor Sarley, for putting this report forward. We know that you did go away, and it's nice to hear actually what actually transpired while you were away. And I know that this particular conference was put on hold for you for some time, and that you'd shown and expressed interest, I think, last year to try and get up to this, and of course you did. And it was held in Brisbane, and it was called Growing Together, being the theme of the conference. And it's a conference, and all areas of horticulture were recognised and celebrated at the conference. And it brought together members across from the vegetable, fruit and floral sectors. Hort Connections highlighted and displayed exciting new possibilities in the industries, the technical industries, the financial industries, the labour solutions and environmental sustainable options that are available as well. And in regards to that, it was what I would say a collaborative attendance from this particular region. I think you've highlighted in your report very well that there's multiple representatives there, being not only Greater Shepparton City Council, but Gold Murray Water, Committee for Greater Shepparton, NAB Shepparton, CommBank Shepparton, Visi, and many of the growers from the particular regions. It's really important, it is so important that we have the mayor that is there. The mayor to attend such conferences when they do become available. Because if you're not there, you're actually not in the conversation. And you need to be in the conversation. And kudos to you in providing the report where you can see very clearly, and from the feedback that I've received, that you were there to promote, to advocate and to prosecute our case in horticulture up there. Well done.
Great, thank you for saying that. Councillor Brophy, I appreciate that. You haven't left much for me, which is good. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to that?
Just briefly, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's important that you attend this particular function, and the report indicates that you understand the significance of this type of engagement. Greater Shepparton, as we know, as much as we're very diversified in our industries and all sorts of other activities we do business-wise, our backbone is still horticulture. And we shouldn't forget that. We should build on it, and we are building on it. And it's great to see that you understand that. I know you did anyway. You come from that background, so you understand it better than most. But it's good to see that you're taking up the challenge of advocating for infrastructure upgrades for this area to support the hort industry. Because without that, I think we'd be flailing, to be quite honest. That's what we have. As I said, we're expanding our tourism in all these other areas, and we should be doing that, obviously. However, this is still the background. This is the engine room of our economy. It needs to be really supported, and I'm glad to see that you've done that. And your report indicates that you have a great understanding of it as well.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Just quickly, thank you, Mayor Sali. You can go to these functions and sit there and take it all in and do nothing. The deal really is that you go out and promote. And from the report, that seems to what's happened. And that's the only way that you can get long-lasting relationships going from those initial contacts. That's an interesting one. And I just refer councillors to the gala dinner on the last night and the Greatest Shepparton Great Things Happen Here video. I mean, that's gold. That is absolute gold to get that put out there in Queensland and to amongst all those delegates who have all got an interest in doing business. And so you have the right people for the right job. Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that, councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
I think it's a great report. Most people at home, or even ourselves, we're very interested in what the mayor does when they go on these trips, and it just shows your focus was on advocating. And it's a great description, it's engaging, it's personable, and it leaves us with some actions at the end. I'll read this out. Genuine interest in education and investment opportunities came from the event, and our economic development team are pursuing these opportunities. So that's also forward thinking. That is everything I'd like to see our mayor doing. So congratulations.
Thank you, councillor Summer, I appreciate that. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor, making it very easy for me.
Yeah, no, I just want to say well done and congratulations. First of all, on attending this conference, and secondly, on presenting this comprehensive report to us, because it really highlights, as everybody else has said, that what was the purpose of your visit and how you have sort of used that opportunity and availed that opportunity for all the best outcomes for our community. So well done, and I was the report was very interesting, and it was a nice read.
Great. Thank you, councillor Abdullah. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, Greg? Look, they've made it very easy for me, and I was just happy for it to be tabled because it's a bit awkward if that didn't happen because I'm able to do it myself. So thank you for doing that, councillor Brophy and Adam, and councillor Dobson, Summer and Abdullah. But yes, look, it's in there. I wanted to make sure that I gave an update on my trip that took place, it feels like a lifetime ago now, but early June. It's been highlighted that there are a number of representatives from Greater Shepparton, which is really important. That collaborative approach on anything we do is important. We can't do things on our own. It's also been mentioned here, you know, the conference theme was growing together, and the reality was it was also coming together because of obviously post-COVID as well, which was really important as well. Building networks and connections with people from right across the country is vitally important. It was an unbelievable experience, something I'll look forward to doing again. It's very relevant that it aligns with our international engagement strategies as well, but from a national perspective, Councillor Adam highlighted, you know, ag in particular, hort is the backbone of our region, and continue advocacy in that space is vitally important. Obviously the mention of the Great Things Happen Here video, I mean, that literally speaks for it. You literally press play and it does its thing, and the feedback from that was unbelievable. People literally came up to our table and wanted to have a conversation about what we do and the great stories that are featured within it. I do also want to make mention that I wasn't the only person up there on behalf of council, that Sarah Hardwick, who is council's Economic Development Project Officer, was up there and did a power of work as well alongside me in regards to advocating for our region, but more from that internal operation perspective from council. So kudos to her and obviously the team that fall under Geraldine Christou as well. So a really good team effort, and I'm really confident that some good outcomes will come from it. So thank you for that. Councillors, will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 63 of the agenda, 16.2, Council Committee Reports. Nil received 16.3, Notice of Motion, Amendment or Rescission. Nil received 17, Urgent Business not included on the agenda. Nil received 18, Close of Business, close of meeting, I should say, and I will do that at 4:42 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.